Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Daily Brief. Woohoo, Birdie! Wow, it's interesting to see. We should probably keep track. Oh, look at that. There's still quite a few people online. Why you people just won't go away? Like I look at the Daily Brief, the lounge is about half full here. And I look over on YouTube and I see there's like, I don't know, about maybe a dozen people. Remember, back last winter it was like like 100 people in there, so you can definitely see the I think the price coming off there yesterday kind of kicked everybody in the nuts who was hoping for a bottom, and so we're starting to see sentiment come out of the market here. And we knew this was going to be a tough, long, grinding slide through 2018, cleaning up the fluff of the past couple of years and the blow off top. In fact, I've been talking to you guys about sort of the hangover and what the hangover was going to look like into the end of the year. Frankly speaking, I got to say, I wasn't expecting such a huge dump here. But, you can sort of see this sort of we were actually moving very well in lockstep there, and then all of a sudden they just lost their lunch yesterday on Mr. Craig Wright's wonderfulness, and we were playing a fun song, "You're a Jerk." And Shane, as sort of a special treat, keep in mind, everybody, that I'm an old stock market guy, commodities market, trading, building trading plans, trading setups, right? Manage your emotions, all that kind of stuff. I don't, to be honest with you, I'm not a crypto expert. And so I actually asked, we had quite an interesting conversation going on in the lounge there this morning, sort of leading up to this big Bitcoin Cash forking event. And I actually asked one of our site participants, very knowledgeable in the blockchain space, Shane, to come in and maybe try and help explain what the heck is going on here, and try and help a layman like Brian understand, the nuances of all this. So, good morning, Shane. How are you this morning?
I'm excellent. How are you guys?
Oh, that's good to hear. Good. And of course, we've got the mayor of Vienna driving the bus. Feel a little under the weather today, but if I'm not mistaken, having a birthday coming up here soon. And a happy belated, Julian, if you do watch this later on. Julian just had a birthday, but we've got the mayor of Vienna driving the bus, and it's his birthday tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. How are you doing this morning, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, Brian. How are you?
Excellent. Thanks. Always good. Trying to play from a position of strength. So, ironically enough, sitting on just a big pile of cash right now, just waiting, and unfortunately just waiting for this market to finally play itself out and find a bottom. And of course, yesterday we talked lots about the technical damage that was done in the market, sentiment-wise. I think, on those broiler chicken shows and stuff like that, I've been sort of pointing out that we're kind of still in sort of no man's land. I like the fact that we're getting closer now to the bottom end of the range. But as we were sort of sitting in here, we were pretty vulnerable. And as I was sort of saying just there a moment ago, I was looking for a nice little FU. They did it in 2014, nice little double bottom to get everybody all bullish, and then they broke everybody's hearts. Looks like they're just, and of course, you can't write better fiction than reality, and history never repeats itself completely. But it does often rhyme. So I wonder whether, the dump that we are looking for into the end of the year may have just happened there with Mr. And frankly speaking, I don't know all of the names of the players. After a while, it actually starts to make my head hurt trying to understand all the nuances. But this was a really funny little image that I saw on Twitter this morning about the various different players in this Bitcoin Cash debacle. And if I understand correctly, this is supposed to be Mr. Roger Ver and Jihan Wu, if I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly or not. And these guys over here, Darth Vader and all them, are that Craig Wright guy. But before I go on to any more sort of detailed conversation about price action and what I see happening in the market, maybe we can give Shane the opportunity to just sort of can you just sort of give us a summary of what the heck is going on and what we should be sort of watching here?
Yeah,
right.
I'll just share my screen here, and I think I got the same as yours, Brian.
Yep.
I'll switch it right now. So over the past few days, I've been watching this fork play out, and what we're looking for is who's got the most hash power weight. Now, what we've been seeing, what we were expecting to see was Jihan Wu of Bitmain to take his hash power off of Bitcoin and go into and take that hash power and throw it into Bitcoin Cash. I don't think that was really the case. I think Craig Wright just got a little bit outplayed here, and Jihan Wu set up the nodes and the miners accordingly to make sure that Bitcoin Cash ABC took over Bitcoin Cash SV. The nitty gritty of it is Craig Wright just wants control, and I think Craig Wright just isn't technically there and to understand how the inner workings of a blockchain is executed, and it's kind of blatantly obvious about that now. So
did he go and like buy like a major miner or something and then try to fire Jihan Wu or something?
There was some bad blood. If you watch this interview with Whalepool, it's pretty telling what happened. It was actually apparently Jihan Wu stabbed Craig Wright in the back, and they pushed him out of China basically. But Craig Wright's partners set out and built their own farm, and pretty much were mining Bitcoin Cash and pulling off other mining algorithms to be the most profitable out there. You know, which I give them credit for. You know, if you're a miner, you can go and mine all you want. But this is supposed to be a contentious fork, as in only one will live. Unlike how that fork that we saw last year in August, where we saw both Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Live. And be nice about it. It'd be something about as turbulent as Ethereum and Ethereum Classic forking. So I'm not too sure what Craig Wright's doing right now, or their pool. What's their pool? I gotta find that. Where's that tab? That one. No, not that one. That one. There we go. So SV Pool is supporting Bitcoin SV. CoinGeek is in partnership with Craig Wright, and they're throwing all their hash power at Bitcoin SV in order to push that fork through. So, I mean, the votes are in. And here's the stats. ABC is the contentious winner right now, and SV is not as supported. I'm not too sure what the blockchain is going to do the next day or two, but we may see Craig Wright and his boys flip the table and decide to just go and fork it themselves. And just mine, like we saw with Ethereum Classic. So we're not out of the woods yet. I think there's still a lot of headaches and heartaches out there, you know, through this whole political debacle. And yeah, there's no replay protection, so I don't think we're. I think it might be a day or two before we can actually trade Bitcoin Cash again. And like Alex is saying, watch out for moving Bitcoin Cash and that coin right now. It's best just to keep that aside. If you haven't moved it yesterday or the day before, it's a little too late to move anything that's Bitcoin Cash related. But yeah.
So if you had Bitcoin Cash because it forked off of the other chains and you just left it in your account, are these exchanges going to wait for sort of a winner to be declared and then endorse that one? How does that work? Do you know? Any ideas?
Well, going back to 2016, and that was a shit show. But I think most of the exchanges are prepared to give you the option of deciding what you wanted. So a lot of exchanges were giving you an option to sell your ABC to SV or your SV to ABC before this fork happened. So,
if I understand correctly, there's going to be two outcomes of this, but only one of them is going to survive.
There's three scenarios. Either one lives, one dies, or they both survive and it's gonna be a goddamn mess, or they both survive and it's just business as usual.
I think it's
Alex, was there something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think it might be pretty similar to what we had last August with Bitcoin when we had BCH initially forking off of BTC. So where you afterwards then have two separate Bitcoin chains, which is now two separate Bitcoin Cash chains, and they're probably both gonna survive. And yeah,
they'll just be their own little things. And so really the $64,000 question, actually before we get to the $64,000 question, somebody on YouTube asked, any way to give a quick recap of what the fork is all about from a high level, or is there a resource that we can check out? I think Rusky Artem, this is what we're trying to do here, talking with Shane, just to give like sort of an overview of all this. I guess, the long and short of it here is, how does this directly affect Bitcoin itself?
Well, I've got a recomment with you, Alex. Unlike the fork we had in August, where we had replay attack protection, here we don't. This is actually a contentious fork, where Craig Wright doesn't care about protecting the customer. He just wants this to push through. Period. Yeah. We had replay protection in August, but we don't have Bitcoin Cash doesn't have replay protection now.
Do a lot of people use Bitcoin Cash? I thought it was just sort of a fun novelty of Mr. Verse. But is a lot of the ecosystem actually based on this Bitcoin Cash?
I would say no. But Jihan Wu and Bitmain hold a lot of Bcash, right? Especially when they were offering miners up for sale and only taking in Bcash, right, in order to kind of persuade the market to adopt it. So it worked. It's adopted. Whether it's being used much or not is yet to be seen. A lot of blocks are empty, and a lot of stuff is just hot air. But nonetheless, it's someone else's ideal of what Bitcoin should be.
Yeah, so like Axel is asking, and frankly speaking, I think it's not a bad question. Is the dump that we saw in Bitcoin actually related to this, and how so?
I'd say yes, absolutely. Especially where Craig Wright and Roger Ver both have Bitcoin.com sites. That's already confusing the public, right? When the public is trying to figure out, okay, I like this Bitcoin story, how do I get in? And obviously everyone just types in bitcoin.com to see how that works, and you find out that what's this BTC BCH stuff, right? So any rumblings like this, especially this big, will definitely cause a lack of faith in the market.
Yeah, like if I looked at that and I was like brand new and I typed in bitcoin.com and it says buy Bitcoin up there at the top, how would I even know that this wasn't actually Bitcoin that I was buying, eh? That's scary. Okay. Was there anything else? Somebody, Kurt, just said if you would like to and maybe Ruski Artem to answer your question. I think we've seen this guy in the Bitcoin community once or twice, eh? Have any of you ever seen this guy? Anyway, if I'm not mistaken, Kurt here says, watch this video if you want the backstory. So I might do that as well. I'll post that in the lounge, Risky. So thank you very much, Kurt. There's a little bit of background information, an hour long. Oh, boy. Well, I'm not endorsing this. I'm not saying you want to listen to this guy, but Kurt here is saying it probably would give you some context of what's going on here. So, I mean, I'm just curious as to all this. Me as sort of trader dude, I built up this crypto portfolio. I've got I own basically a little bit of everything in the universe. We obviously got the Bitcoin Cash with the spinoff. I certainly wasn't going to go buy any, but, it's just really interesting to watch this whole soap opera play out. And, as Axel sort of pointed out here a moment ago, the question really is, how does this actually directly affect Bitcoin? It almost feels like the market was looking for a reason to complete, I tweeted out this image this morning, and I think this image to me really speaks volumes, if I can find it. I'm in Shane's tab hell here. But I tweeted this image out this morning on Bitcoin on this. We have this AB equals CD. We have this AB equals CD. So that's the purple, then the orange. Then we have this teal AB equals CD. And we have this red AB equals CD. That's a hell of a lot of bearish harmonics. And what I find fascinating, sort of prices just sitting right at this AB equals CD harmonic level right now. So, you could argue that we've technically cleaned up one of these AB equals CDs. We still have these other 3 ones all floating out here. The purple AB equals CD won't be confirmed here until we take out this low. You liquidate me, I liquidate myself event low. And I find it fascinating that through all of this, we still haven't even gotten back to that you liquidate me, I liquidate myself event window. So in a weird sort of way, if you look at like OKCoin forwards, there's not a heck of a lot has really actually happened here. It's kind of cool. The level tours just did volume profile. And you can clearly see we've got quite a bit of unfinished business down on this lower half of the profile. And I wouldn't be surprised if we have to take, like the next 6 months or so and just sort of fill all this in. But it is, I think, on a sort of a short-term event, we had the big dump. And, my question ultimately here is how does this BCH event actually affect Bitcoin itself? And I really don't know what the answer is. So I appreciate you trying to help us understand the nuances of this. Riz's, I've tried to talk to Rizza, but he's so damn smart. He's way over my head. Rizza, is there anything you could add to this conversation about all this?
No, to be completely frank with you, I look at everything purely from a technical standpoint. And fundamentally speaking, like you said, the market's really wonky right now, and it's a bit too early to actually execute anything. But as you said, I'm still trading, so I'm going long. It's the safest bet, but it's still too early in my books.
Okay, cool. All right. I thought maybe you might understand some of this BCH nuance better than some of the rest of us. But anyway, welcome
Thank
on
you.
board, and awfully handsome picture that you got there. What a handsome
Thank you,
guy.
my friend. No, I look at it purely as a novelty, the same way you do as well.
Okay.
Not much utility in it, to be honest with you. I don't see the use case for it.
For BCH, you mean?
Correct. Yes. Like it's a nice fork. Don't get me wrong, but I wasn't really a big fan from the get go myself.
Yeah, and Shane, like, can you confirm? Is this the BCH is a highly centralized cryptocurrency, isn't it?
I'd say it's pretty close to how Ripple operates, just because I'd say the amount of wealth, Bitcoin Cash wealth accumulated in between Roger Ver and Jihan Wu, and probably Craig Wright is pretty much as centralized as it can get. At least you know who's in it, though. But it was always a battle of opinions, and remnants of an opinion back in 2017 during that August fork. And it's really just folks exercising their opinions. All the best to them. I got no qualms with folks running their own blockchains, but it's unfortunate that the morale has gone and affected the rest of the market, or it might be just an excuse to bring this market back and get into a good entry position by someone or something.
Yeah,
that's kind of my idea.
Okay, thanks, guys. Appreciate the help in trying to understand what's going on here. You know, I had some fun in the broader market with the swing traders setting up these grids to hunt El Tangonators. I'll change gears here a little bit, but I'll sort of work my way back to crypto. But I did want to just start off with obviously the fork issue. So we'll go back there. We can continue this conversation in a minute. Just quick pop over to the stock market. I'm getting the feeling like the stock market itself is kind of running out of steam on the downside. And I found it fascinating. I don't know whether you were watching things like Apple. I've been squawking at length online on Twitter and stuff about, I don't quite understand how Jim Cramer can be all rah-rah Apple bullish on the way up. But then the stock actually, ironically enough, comes back down into a buying window. And then all of a sudden he starts getting really bearish, which made no sense to me whatsoever. And if anything, I would make the argument that, if we look at something like an Apple, that, technically we're actually 200-period moving average trend line, filled in the gap, came back to the original breakout level, reload zone off of the 6-month range, AB equals CD objectives hit. I'd actually make the argument that this is probably where, if you were actually bullish of Apple, fundamentally, this is where you actually have to step up and, start thinking about buying. Could we dip down and fill in these gaps? Sure. I mean, Mark can do any old damn thing at once. But in the short term, it just feels like the rubber band has been stretched too far to the downside. We'll see how that goes. If I look at the stock indexes themselves, you can see they're all humming and hawing here. The Dow and the S&P. Here's the Dow here and the S&P over here. In fact, even the NASDAQ itself, they all made new lows this morning. So, on balance, still pointing down. But what I did find really interesting this morning is you'll notice on the S&P, they left a gap when they rallied the market back up. And we've come down, tried to fill in the gap. But even as we are right now, we wouldn't call this gap filled on the candlestick. So, I don't see that we're at the bottom. But I definitely feel like the tech stocks maybe have gone a little bit overdone here. And I look at, names like Google just sort of sitting here at the bottom end of its reload zone range. Amazon is trying to come down, just basically fill in a gap here. Facebook, interesting. Everybody's shitting all over Facebook right now. But ironically enough, if we change this to a line chart, I think you could actually make the justification that there might even be a little bit of a W trying to form here. And of course, the time of year, is this, middle to the end of November? Is this really when we want to get too bearish of the stock market heading into the Christmas holiday season, US Thanksgiving, Black Monday? In fact, I heard earlier today that I think Amazon is starting their Black Friday event week 1 week ahead of time. So I don't know. It seems to me like maybe we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, getting too bearish here. Full disclosure, I've got one put left on the books. We made a little bit of money selling two of them, and I've got my freebie, and I'm humming it on whether I just let this freebie go or just keep it on the books as insurance. I'm not really, motivated to do one thing or another here. One thing that did jump out at me about the stock market, and I thought this was really interesting for those people that do play the stock market, is the Fed just came out and had an event. Where are we here? Where are you, Mr. Fed? Here we are. So the Fed watchers left puzzled by what Powell was trying to communicate. So the Fed's being really, really sort of tight-lipped, actually, sending people in different directions. And I think the reason why is because, and I like to follow the TED spread really closely, the TED spread, and it was weird just because the other day I was like, okay, things look like they're calming down. We're okay. And the Eurodollar market just fell out of bed this morning. And the TED spread is cranked up to new highs. And of course, W's are bullish. And we don't want to be bullish of the TED spread. When you're bullish of the TED spread, that means, oh boy, we might have, financial crisis coming. So I don't like to see higher highs and higher lows. But what this really means is that either the Fed says, okay, we're not going to raise interest rates. And of course, the stock market will calm down and people will feel a little bit better. I'm worried about housing market in the States and stuff like that. But if they don't raise rates, then you can see the corporate interest rate market is going to generate another financial asset crisis like it did through here, right? When the TED spread goes above 1.0, all hell breaks loose, right? And that's sort of up into here, and then woohoo, financial asset crisis. So, I don't think the Fed really has any choice. They have to raise rates, but hopefully it makes sense to everybody. They can't come out at like public functions and say, well, sorry, guys, you got no choice. We're raising rates indefinitely as long as the corporate bond market continues to melt down here. If they did that, of course, the stock market would just fall right out of bed. So I can understand why the stock market is very leery right now. One thing that we do talk about on the site is, in the level 2 program, we just did the moving averages module a couple weeks ago. And quite often after you get these moving average crosses, you get a bit of a kickback. So believe it or not, yes, we did get the death cross on the small cap market in the States, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit of a kickback counter trend rally here. And then also too, I have to ask, heading into Christmas, US Thanksgiving holiday, all that kind of stuff. Usually, generally that's a relatively positive time in the market. Could we get a little bit of a relief of this malaise heading into that event? And the interesting thing here for those people that do play stocks is you'll notice we are now down into reload zones. So, does it make sense that the pros are actually going to be thinking about being buyers down in here and risk against these panic lows? I think that's logical. Okay, so that's sort of broader stock market trying to bottom. It's interesting. This is the energy sector. Energy has been leading the market down. So let's keep a real close eye. If we start seeing bottoming action coming into the energy stocks, that probably tells us that the market malaise is maybe abating. Interesting too to see the gold stocks. They have this head and shoulders working. You can see we rallied right back into the neckline. now we're running into a little bit of exhaustion. And I made reference earlier to the swing traders. Interestingly enough, you know, the middle of last week, we were talking a little bit about we were going to be watching if we get any sort of divergence in this reload zone on Kiwi. Kiwi said, nope, not interested, and just blew up to new highs. So really, I think we have to actually be thinking about Kiwi maybe pressing up into sort of AB equals CDs up into here. And if that forms a divergence, then, you know, we'll get the radar screens going for the swing traders. You know, with the crude oil coming off, it should make sense that gold did catch a bid, but that bid is right into the face of a massive M top. We did post this double bottom with the very small kind of sloppy divergence, but really nice and stupid. And you can see on the swing traders, they had their move stop to scratch, scratch hit. They had the move stop to trailing hit. So I'm feeling like, you know, if you got chicken shit on the gold, at the very least, probably want to be taking like partial profits. Let's see if I can change that, right? There was a double top that came in there. It's a small gain, but a gain is a gain is a gain. But I wouldn't be surprised if we actually see the gold come up against this trend line, and then we're probably, in fact, you're probably going to see it rally up against that trend line on a divergence, and Willie has to get stupid, and that'll probably set up a nice short somewhere over here. And if that's the case, then that would make sense that we should be, you know, at the very least, just keeping oil in the back of our minds. You know, this fall has been precipitous. You can see I was talking a while ago about this swing trade setup that failed. Now we've gotten to the point where, you know, 50% rules. We're starting to talk about some pretty big numbers. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a substantial rally in crude. In fact, you know, kind of like that gold conversation, there's the downtrend line, 50% level sitting at that. So I'll be keeping a close eye on crude. I would like to see a divergence, so maybe one more FU move against these lows. And if we see that we get that FU move on a divergence and the oil stocks themselves do not go to new lows, then I think actually we might actually have a nice little trade setting up there. You know, Canadian dollar is a really good proxy in the energy space. They often say that the Canadian dollar leads. We did actually trade to just slightly lower low here this morning, or actually that's this morning. It's probably a day or two ago. So I don't think I have a double bottom working here yet, and we sort of have a V bottom in momentum. So I would like to see one more push down here. And as I had sort of said a moment ago, I can kind of see that maybe forming over the next week or so. So that's sort of what I'm seeing in swing trader land. Just not a lot setting up crisply. Things are pretty choppy. Now, the reason why I mentioned all this, and really not really, you know, I am seriously considering, and I mulled it over. The problem is that the options are so damn expensive. But if the options weren't so damn expensive and this inside bar fired and we recaptured this trend line tomorrow, I actually think I could justify taking a short-term trade, but the options are just so expensive. So I don't know whether I'd be taking this trade, but I could definitely see a nice counter trend rally here in Apple. And you can see, I mean, it's just, you know, Swiss cheese. I mean, there's just gaps everywhere here. So I definitely could, in fact, probably you can even see sort of neckline kind of conversations, maybe against those lows, maybe against that low. I don't know, but hopefully you can see the fractal up here. So if I was going to want to be short Apple, I actually want to be short up here, not way down here. Inside bar fires, you can see, actually, this is interesting. You can actually see the bears falling asleep. Actually, we had the level 2 class, and somebody had asked about volume impetus. Not a bad example here. You know, you have pretty heavy volume there on the downside. That was 96 million shares. Jesus, this thing trades a lot, eh? And then a little bit lower high, right? So here we have 91 million. And now what you've got a key low there to watch. This low actually is the most important low here. That's 25.36 million shares. Then you can see we ramped up again. So now we have that scenario Brian loves about the volume impetus and 3 lower highs. So if we get a, I wouldn't be surprised if this inside bar fires, market moves up, then we have like a down day, and it would be on that down day. If we can get a nice low volume print, lower than this 25.36 million shares on a red candle, then you know that the bears have lost their interest and they've fallen asleep. It would be incumbent, of course, on the bulls to take over, but this would be, anybody who wants to really practice volume impetus, really watch how the volume plays out here on Apple here. And I do find it fascinating, like I said earlier, about, I guess, somewhere in this area here, we had Mr. Kramer come out and say, "Oh, the sky's falling," right? And I was kind of like, that doesn't make any sense, right? If anything, we should be thinking about buying. And I noticed one of the big investment firms down in the States came out with a big buy recommendation on this thing today. So, I mean, I can understand that. And I think somebody even said the analyst is a lady, and she sort of single-handedly stopped the bear run here in the stocks this morning. We'll see how it goes. I mean, it's still pretty early, but as I said, if we were thinking about market pivot here, considering the gap levels, and then considering the seasonality, I could buy the argument that we'll find some sort of short-term support. And you can even see on the NASDAQ, they got some pretty big gaps up top here. So if anything, I'm kind of thinking we're going to be in a trading range here for a while. So we'll see how that goes. Junior stocks obviously looking a little bit soft on this morning. Oh, nice. Hey, this looks good. We were talking about our DPW trying to get back in on the long side of this. So interesting price action here this morning. If you are interested in that DPW, it looks like it's maybe telling us to get interested again. Let's see how this day finishes. My little pod stock, I bought it at 6 cents, sitting at 4.5, fell out of bed. Boo, hiss, hiss, boo. I think I might just liquidate that, but I'm not going to hit the bid here. I'll maybe work an order at a nickel at the bottom of the gap there, but it looks like he's failed here in the short term. And there's a lot of stock out on this one, so it's not like it's a VCIM where you can just sit and forget about it. Uranium names, they come in just sort of floundering at the bottom ends of their ranges. That sort of brings us to the natural gas idea. And I think I'm going to be getting more serious about this natural gas as we go forward. Stephen was posting the natural gas charts this morning, or I guess it was yesterday, and geez, an option over there just went absolutely insane. It was like 50, 60 cents or something, and it went up to like $7 on that nutso run in natural gas. NG1 exclamation mark. There is the natural gas. Yeah, it's going to be up and down like a horse drawers here now. Obviously, we do not want to chase anything up here, but you can see the monstrous gap down here. But yesterday we were sitting in the lounge sort of figuring out, okay, what kind of names are we interested in? And I found this one. I really like this chart. What do you think? If this was an altcoin, would we be interested in taking our shots here? Maybe not altcoins, not really the best example, but all in all, and it's kind of like the tech stocks down in the States. I don't really mind the idea of hunting a long proxy in this name somewhere down in this area. And this guy, Tourmaline, they are heavy into the natural gas business. And I noticed some cheeky little gaps. There's a gap right there, big old gap up top here.
Right. And second, I don't want to mute you at the same time.
Whoop, hello. Somebody has decided to join us. Who's that? That's Kurt. Oh, Kurt, gonna have to throw you on mute. There you go. All right, so for those people that are interested in the natural gas space, I'm going to be really watching this closely. You notice November, December, seasonally, tough time of year. Usually this thing bottoms first quarter of the year, as basically the demand for energy heats up into the winter, right? You can clearly see the double bottom that was put in here. I'd like to see that kind of action. Notice this is a really good example of gaps needing filling. And you notice the market came down, filled in that gap nicely here. But they actually left a gap on the upside following that gap fill, which basically says to me that this is obviously the important level on the stock. I looked at the options this morning. You saw what natural gas prices are doing. They're backing off. So I certainly don't have any reason to go and spend up for this right now, but I will watch how this acts down in through here. And if we're lucky, maybe we can get like a nice little, where are we here? Nice little reload zone stab, kind of like what we just saw in that DPW against these lows, right? Fill in this gap, and then maybe I'll take a really good look at that option. The only problem with this is it is a Canadian stock. Canada has lots of natural gas plays. It's not listed in the States, so you kind of have to be a Canadian or have a Canadian account to play this particular name. But I am going to be watching over the next little while names within the natural gas space, because I wouldn't mind building some exposure here. And this also sort of basically is in the same lines as the uranium play, right? Basically, these two vie with coal for energy. Okay, so that's the stock market. Some up, some down. I'm feeling as though we're at a bit of an inflection point. And really, I think, simply put, you can throw on that Apple chart. Today is going to be sort of you can clearly see it's an inside bar day right now. Let's see. And of course, tomorrow's Friday, taking it out the end of the week, position squaring. Let's see if this thing fires an inside bar tomorrow. If it does, then I think that our bear slide is over. And we should go into sort of seasonal rally mode heading into Thanksgiving holiday and then Christmas. All right, so I'm going to leave the stock market at that. Now, let's pop back on over to crypto. Why was I making all that reference to the swing trades? Well, I actually set up a grid to follow all the MEX contracts off of basically that same swing trading principle. And then the fucking market just lost its lunch. So this was half the problem with trying to swing trade crypto, is that it's so insanely volatile that a lot of the classic, El Tangonator kind of setups kind of get thrown right out the window when you get these nutso insano volatility events in the market. You can see Willie Stupid, bullish divergence coming in on MACD. We were watching this Litecoin, and then it just puked, right, and just dumped on this event. I'm if anything, I only want to take trades off of these swing trade setups when it's that I look over in the corner, I see a big old pile of money just sitting there, and all I got to do is just walk over and pick it up. I don't see that anywhere here right now. And with these nutso insano tails, my feeling is it's going to take some time for all of this to calm down. If anything, what we should expect is the market, Brian loves candle body lows as trade locations. But even that's, awfully dangerous with the size of some of these tails. And, this is sort of that kind of conversation. This is all, these are all relative to Bitcoin. So I don't know whether we can do these coins relative to US dollar on BitMEX, but it might be interesting to watch. And I was kind of hoping Thomas would be here today and I could ask him if we could set up a grid like this on OKCoin. But this is going to be a project I'll be working on for you guys, just to sort of highlight swing trade ideas within crypto off of these forwards contracts. I don't know whether I can believe what I'm seeing on Phoenix. What's really interesting I noticed was that, the other day, where the hell is it? The other day, we were watching the Phoenix, this whole Tether debate. The spreads between Bitcoin on one exchange. This is Bitcoin, and I'm not even quite sure what I have here. Oh, that's not showing it. I think this is Bitcoin Stamp versus Bitcoin Phoenix. And really, I think this is all a commentary on Tether. What I find really interesting about this, though, is that when I go online, now what the hell have I done? When I go on things like Twitter, I notice that Mr. What the hell's his name? Bank to the Future, Simon Dixon, right? I notice he's like squawking about BCH and all that, and I'm wondering whether he's kind of like, okay, phew, they're not talking about Tether anymore and its issues. Now, the chart I wanted to show you was you can, I mean, hopefully, hope. This was just nothing more than a head fake, and everything's still fine at Tether. I mean, I don't really want to see chaos. I don't want to see people get destroyed. I don't want to see failure in the space. But, you know, we should all respect the fact that there's something not right about this chart. Now, you know, if you have your money over on Phoenix and you're doing the Tether thing, it doesn't really seem to be that big of an issue. What I think's happening here is it's literally, this is almost like the tale of two different markets, where you have the Bitcoin that sort of trades in the real world, all these other exchanges, and then you have the Bitcoin that trades on Phoenix. And I'm actually quite surprised that these two markets are basically operating sort of interdependent on each other. It's fascinating. I would have thought all of this would have been cleaned up by now, but still there's a good $100 to almost $200 spread here. And as long as that spread sort of persists, I think fundamentally there's something wrong with this space. Or, you know, maybe Phoenix. I understand that Phoenix has issues with their bank, is wrapped up in Brazilian political scandals. So, you know, maybe that has all to do with that. But I would have liked to have seen this spread close. But what I do find interesting is that people have almost sort of just accepted this as normal. Nobody's even really talking about it. And like I said, Simon Dixon's on there squawking about BCH and, you know, how, you know, Bitcoin itself is the only, you know, real cryptocurrency, blah, 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 when he's not even addressing this disconnect that's going on with his exchange and the rest of the Bitcoin community. I'm not quite sure how to interpret this, to be honest with you. But as I had said earlier, I've sort of walked away from the Tether conversation completely. So. And I would strongly suggest that you seriously look at your portfolio and ask whether you really need to take that kind of risk. Remember, guys, this isn't the kind of market where we want to be super risk averse. In fact, I was even, and I don't know how many of you responded to this, but I really wanted to drive home the message yesterday to the public. So I even put out a tweet where I was like, now's not a bad time to touch base with the TRI community and public in general. We have gotten quite a few responses from this, so that's good. I like to see that. But the long and short of it here is, what is your number one job? And remember, I ask you guys this every bloody day in these daily briefs. This is serious shit, right? What is your number one job? And it's to make sure, don't put yourself into a position you can't come back and play the game again tomorrow. Just don't do it. It's not worth it. So, you know, it's because of this kind of stuff, right? That I talk this way. Now, one thing I did find really interesting this morning, and I'm seeing sort of a lot of this sort of confluence here, but the Chicago boys, and we haven't talked much about Chicago in a while, have we? But notice this dotted yellow line and what's happening with price right now. And then if we actually zoom out and we see that, well, it turns out that dotted line is actually the market structure trend line. And you can see how well it was respected through here. We had that funny little FU. And the funny little FU sort of took market away from there. And you know our old rule, if you break the trend line and then give us market structure on the other side, rock and roll. But you can see W's tried to come in here, but nothing ever really formed. So we've broken back down, and on the other side of the trend line, we actually put in this big ugly M. And now, interestingly enough, and somebody was even commenting about this yesterday, which I thought was really cool, is that you often see markets come back and play with trend lines from the other side. So you can see how price was underneath. Then price came above. It started to move away. It couldn't, ideally for us to get bullish and, for the, I'll show you a bullish scenario. We did this in level 2 class yesterday, which I thought was so cool. It was just, nicely timed. Bullish scenario should look like Cardano. So here's a good example where, 1, 2, 3 tests of a trend line, market breaks the trend line. And in this case, we actually created a really nice little trading range, right? I mean, you could argue that this is just a narrow sideways channel right there to there to there, right? So we went up, trend line, then broke it, up, paused, and then just kapow, right? Nice W comes in here, rock and roll. So that's the bullish scenario. And of course, a nice heavy buying volume as well, confirming that breakout. So back to Bitcoin, you can see we came up, down, and if we had gotten any kind of W here on any kind of volume, I think this thing was ready to rock and roll. And we were talking about that for a while, right? Are we going to get that move? Are we going to get that pump that everybody was expecting? And it just never came in. Now, like I said, what's really cool about this is you can see that really, we may, and cool, I don't know whether that's the right word. If you're a bull, obviously not. But my hunch is basically, and hopefully you can see this, right? We're oscillating off of this trend line right now. Extremely important. I think this was a panic. And what's really interesting about this is you can even see the Chicago boys, they just really weren't that interested in doing business down here. I don't know whether we would call this single ticks or not. Level 2 just did volume profile, so obviously I'm talking lots of their kind of content. I was really hoping that we'd actually just finish this candle here right at that high and then paint a nice railroad tracks. As it is right now, this actually looks like a bullish AB equals CD. So we go down to maybe like a 10-minute chart. Yeah. So something like AB, CD. So don't be shocked. This is the Bitcoin for futures contracts in Chicago. But don't be shocked if we work our way back up into sort of this 56, 5,700 here area on these futures contracts. And, if we look at the broader market, say like the cash market, I really did like in Japan. They almost painted that same railroad tracks, a little bit crisper. You can see nice little doji, well, not really doji, kind of like a, I guess you could call that a bit of a hammer. Following this big sort of reversal candle. You can see, like we said, there really wasn't that much selling interest when we got down here. So that's a good sign. And, volume impetus, one high. This high here was 1.285 thousand coins, 1.07. And really the question is, what was this? And this is 1.08. So 1.9, 1.2, 1.08. Now, if we get like an hourly bar where we have less now, and really the number we want to watch out of Japan here looks to be about 295 coins. If we can just get an hour period here where everybody just calms down and the bears are done, then I think we can, and you can see the volume impetus, the bulls are trying desperately to wake up. So how do we measure bulls waking up? You see this bar here, 1.22. You can see lower highs, lower highs. Where the hell's the bulls? Where the hell are the bulls? And then all of a sudden, boom, on this railroad tracks candle here, 1.38 thousand coins. Woo! Boy, a higher high. And you can see a little bit more further buying pressure coming in here. So we haven't got message that the bear has fallen asleep yet. We would really like to see that the bear has fallen asleep. And that's less than 295 coins on an hourly basis here out of Japan. And ideally, we would like to see the bulls just continue to make higher highs. And I like this chunky chunk, right? You know, we in the level 1 class, we talk about how we want to see chunky bars all in the same color, sort of confirming what we're seeing out of OBV. So interestingly enough, and this number here on OBV is 302.475. Right now we're at 301.9, and we've got 3 minutes left to go. So we're not going to break out on this hourly candle. In fact, we might even roll over here in the next couple of minutes, and this paint's red. But, you know, if you are watching Japan and really whatever your respective crypto market that you like to watch, let's see whether this W can come in here on OBV. That's encouraging. And hopefully all of you guys can see. We don't see this very often. Let's see if it actually happened. This was 2996, and this was 298. Oh, okay. I thought maybe we might have had an OBV divergence there, but no sign of that just yet. You can see Willie is trying to paint a very wide W here. So when we get W's in Willie and we get W's in OBV, the problem, of course, is that this is a lower low. So I don't think textbook we can call this, you know, a Davo. But, you know, it's encouraging. And it definitely makes me feel a little bit better that this was some sort of event bottom. And like I said, you know, did this really, all this BCH talk and the BCH event, does it really have anything to do with Bitcoin? Is Bitcoin almost being thrown out with, you know, throw the baby out with the bathwater? I don't know whether fundamentally anything actually happened with Bitcoin. I think it's just more of a sentiment thing. And really, so that sort of speaks to, and, you know, Shane, if you could keep a close eye on this, whoop, he's gone. All right. Alex, Riza, for whatever it's worth, if you do follow BCH. Anybody else here in the community and in the lounge? Joshua, I know you watch the market like a hawk. All of our FA guys. I saw Leduc in the lounge there just a few minutes ago. Let's, as a community, just sort of keep on top of what the heck is going on with this BCH. If it ends relatively calmly, thank you, Saibe Rocky. You know, they've got a live feed if somebody wants to sort of keep an eye on this. If this ends relatively amicably without complete, you know, meltdown by these participants, then I think, ironically enough, this may have become a non-event, and we have to start thinking about counter-trend rallies. That was off of the very, very short term, right? These are like hourly charts. You know, we've done some serious technical damage off the higher time frames, but I wonder whether we're coming into some sort of support zone here. So let's keep an eye on things like divergences and stuff. You know, I'm a bit leery about using Phoenix data, which is too bad because we did so much nice chart analysis off of it, but oh well, it's the way it goes. It's almost like, you know, it's like who's in the shitter du jour in this crazy space. Probably not a bad idea for us to watch MEX here. They sort of avoided all the mess. But okay, this is kind of cool. So you can see the W's coming in off the 4 hour. Remember we looked at those hourly charts and we started to see signs of the W's on OBV. You can actually see them on the 4 hours. So, you know, ironically enough, this might actually be setting up for a half decent swing trade here. You know, wicks and tails like to be eaten. Those are some pretty damn big tails. We don't really have any signs of divergence yet off of MACD. If anything, what I'd probably like to see, which I'm sure all of you don't want to see, is actually a nice little FU against those lows and then a bottom. And that FU against these lows paints a higher MACD, which creates our divergence scenario. I think in the short term, you can see the W in OBV, and we also have an M inside a W. So interesting harmonic setup off of that formation. And you can see the W trying to form in on Willie. I suppose if we throw on an RSI, I know Dav likes to use the RSI. So, man, it's sloppy, but there's a little bit of a W there. So, what does that say to me? If I'm not mistaken, I think Dav loves to just simply demand the 2 to 1 off of any sort of W that comes in here. This is really wide, so I don't know whether this is a kind of formation I would feel comfortable playing. But nonetheless, you can see where the W pattern is, down, up, down. If we might even fractal out here, which would be kind of cool because the fractal would set up sort of a buy off of that level. And literally, you're going to want to be shooting for 2 to 1. So the problem is that this is so big. I would probably be reluctant to consider that because look at the amount of risk they have to take all the way to the other side of the profile. Yuck. But just strictly momentum-wise, 2 to 1 off of that Davo would basically take us right back up against the old highs. That's a bit aggressive. You know me, I like to use things like 50% rules as profit objectives. So if anything, if you are interested in playing alongside, I think we probably just want to let this develop a little bit more. See if you can get some sort of bottom that comes in relatively close to the bottom of these tails. And then if we do 50% level back up top, which I think is perfectly realistic, especially if this big Bitcoin Cash stuff turns out to be nothing. There's the 50% rule. So, maybe hunt for some sort of W that can get you long off of the lower end of the range, risking to new lows. And the 50% level gives you a 2 to 1. So right there's 1.82 to 1. Well, maybe we got to go a little bit lower, right? So I could see the trade starting to try and form itself. But as we are right here, I don't really like that. So, maybe let this pop up, let the 13 EMA come up, get tagged. All right, we put in some sort of bottom. Then on any kind of pullbacks against the bottom here, you get a nice little fractal inside bar, anything like that down in here. That might set up a half decent swing idea. But we're still a bit early, I think, for any kind of long trade there. Okay, the only other thing that I'm going to mention here is some of these alts are really popping this morning. BRK was supposed to be these guys. They actually have 2 coins. So I noticed somebody mentioned this. And frankly speaking, hopefully everybody can see, bottom end of the range, W's, this crazy ass tail in here. Could you get a double? That's 636 sats. And gee whiz, what a coincidence. This thing topped out at 1350. Do you think that's an accident? You guys have been around long enough with me. Do you think it's an accident that this thing bottomed around, 600-700 sats and it tops out at almost exactly double that level? Do you think that's an accident? I don't. And it's interesting, like Joshua, right? Joshua was in the lounge this morning going, banging out doubles. I mean, this guy's such a fucking pro. It's so great to watch him in action. So, hats off to you. But, just a heads up, you're wondering why this coin is actually rallying. Originally, these guys actually created 2 coins. There was a breakout coin. And then what was the other one? BRX, I think it was. Breakout stake. Yeah. So this was sort of, and I don't know whether you guys remember it was the Steemit guys, wasn't it? The Steemit guys, didn't they have 2 different coins? Same sort of thing. They wanted to have one coin that was sort of their stable coin, and that's, I think, that SBD, right? This thing over here. Wow, look at that. It's actually moving up nicely. Stable coin, right? Gold is a stable coin. Yeah, that's a good one. True USD, stable coin. Even the Tether on Phoenix was doing what it was supposed to be doing. The problem, of course, is Tether on these other exchanges. It's just a fucking nightmare. But anyway. The point, and of course, Nubits. So much for stability there. Josh and I were joking in the lounge this morning. There'll be stability on Nubits at 0. But that's another conversation for another day. The point here is that the BRK was supposed to be their stable coin, so it makes sense why it's popping here. Frankly speaking, I mean, you look at that, gee whiz, and really that makes sense. Well, actually, no, it doesn't. This thing should not have been moving up if Bitcoin was at 20,000. So obviously that whole stablecoin thesis is in jeopardy here. But nonetheless, it did have a nice rally. Maybe they've given up on the stablecoin thesis. I don't know. But to try and explain why the market stopped where it did here this morning, I think it makes perfect sense. We've actually been actually there was a block talk that I did with Alex Sturck back in 2015 maybe with the guys who run this coin. I had a lot of fun on that episode, but that's like years ago now. But anyway, the point of the matter here is you should look at this and go, well, it makes complete sense why, number one, the coin's moving up. I mean, can you guys see the W's? Riza? What do you think? Riza, our newest victim. I always like new people. I like to pick on them. Can you see the W's down here?
No doubt. It's some pretty impressive stuff I've been following, and tons of potential for small pump coins like these.
Sure. I mean, but the point of the matter here is that this isn't new. It's not like something like that we're just making up. A lot of what we do is just sort of rinse and repeat kind of conversations. So understanding why this coin's moving up, like I mean, and it'd be interesting to actually hear what the guys on the coin, if anybody who does follow this story, to actually hear what they're saying. Also, too, really good example of a move above value. Can everybody see how the market moved above value here and it just stopped on a dime? So a really good example. The level twoers, we just did volume profile, like I said. For us to, like I would say that, in fact, we even had this question in the conversation in the group tutorial session. How do you define a ranging market versus a trending market using volume profile? And very simply put, if the market rallies up to value high and then just gets rejected on the move above value high, we're still stuck in the range. If the market can actually accept above value high, i.e. W's, those kind of chart patterns on volume, then that's the definition of a trending market. So for volume profile people. So I might argue that really all we're doing is we're just banging in a range here, but hopefully that gives some context of what's going on with that guy. I load up the screen this morning and I'm like, wow, something's moving here. I also saw recently, and this guy looks like he's just setting up now. You can see where value high is here. So the trading range, according to volume profile, bottom end of the range, the POC. Nice little double bottom right there. That looks to be at about 382 sats. And actually, this is kind of cool, eh? So hopefully all of you guys can see this. Give me 3 reasons for a trade kind of idea. But hopefully everybody can see that cute little W down in there. Down, up, down, breakout. And then we look at things like reload zones. And after the breakout, you see how all we did was we just backed up right back into the original reload zone. And the cool part about this is hopefully everybody can see that on this backup into the reload zone, the market put in a really nice little divergence. So, not a bad looking little name. The question here is, why on earth would the Dutch coins be rallying right now? And I think the answer is, and I posted in the lounge, I think that there's a big sort of Dutch crypto conference coming up. And this is sort of one of the sort of Dutch coin flagship names. So it makes sense why this thing's catching a bid here. I suppose you could argue, like I said just a few minutes ago, if we look at the entire profile, you can see that, value-wise, the top of value is all the way up here. So you could very easily see a rally up to an 800-900. So, 460, that's pushing it a little bit. But any kind of bids down in the sort of 300 area, I think you can get a double here, 600-700. So there's a name for you to chew on. Take a look at that. Factum, look at this guy go. Beautiful. Look at that, eh? I mean, that's basically what it is that we teach here, guys. Buyers seem to be slightly interested today, eh? Beautiful double bottom. And what's ironic about Factum is that Factum actually used to be, way back when, a stable coin. Again, they sort of lost their stability through all that insane-o nutso orgy there from a year or so ago. But now we can actually make the argument that, hey, we got W's working. You can see we have a whole bunch of trapped bears, right? Somebody opened up, sell, and then it quickly jackknifed up and closed here, and then, of course, here's today. So all of these guys are trapped bears. They would love nothing more than either to put the position back on or get out of shorts. And, I don't know where this thing's going to ultimately top out, but, same logic as I just did on the other one. Hopefully everybody can see that, reload zones will be below the POC here or even in that area. If this is the top, well, we'll just move that down so there, right? And, of course, that would buying in here you would be buying into all those trap bears who are trying desperately to close their shorts. So there's another idea, and look at that volume. All right, so Brian M's giving us another one. Why don't we finish at that? We've been going for about an hour and 15 minutes here. Has anybody gotten any value out of what I'm ranting about here today? Does anybody go, okay, yeah, this is worth this. Okay, I just want to make sure. So why don't we finish off with Brian's idea, and we will send you on your way. So let's see what Brian wants us to look at. All right, makes sense. Huge rally, don't chase. M top, what are you supposed to think if you see the market smiling at you? Down we go. Coming back down into reload zones. You can, and really, I think I would have preferred, Brian, had you drawn this fib that you're drawing reload zones off of. I think I would have preferred you to have it off of this high here. But nonetheless, it looks like we came down into maybe, I can't read what that says. Oh, God, I'm an old man. Does that say 61.8? So 61.8 was in the high 50s. Yeah, I think that would probably be a little bit higher here, but it does explain the back and forth. Basically, Mountain Man, nice little tag. And in fact, this is actually a really good example, right? Mountain goes and buys blindly, and then we get the check back to sort of the mean. He would be, selling half, move stops to break even on the remaining, and then a big old M comes in here telling him, all right, well, the bounce is done. Better just walk away. So M comes in, down we go, right? And here comes a new bottom. This is now 78.6, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think 78.6 might be a little bit. Oh, this is interesting. Oh, isn't that weird? Now I'm hallucinating. Oh, look at that cheeky little gap right down there. I don't know what that level is there. That would be, oh, and there's also a gap all the way down at the bottom there. So, yeah, not bad. Divergence, not, well, it's trying to confirm here, right? Really close. Nice looking momentum, right? You can definitely see, and really it should make sense, right? What was this high? This high is basically about 100 or so. So they brought it back down to 50. So what's the odds of a nice dead cat bounce up into 70, 75? Makes complete sense to me. And really, if anything, this is really good example. Does this have anything to do with BCH? I don't think so. Do they even care about BCH? Probably not. So, if anything, use the weakness in this kind of name based on the BCH nonsense to actually be a buyer. Because, like I said, we're coming down into trade location. So that looks pretty good. All right. Thank you, Brian. And hopefully all of you guys look at this and go, the public looks at this and goes, opportunity is nowhere. We should look at this and go, okay, now is actually a time that I should start paying attention. Make sense, guys? I hope so. Okay, I think I'll leave it at that for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the offering. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, and happy early birthday. I think Mr. Mayor is going to be away to tomorrow. That's right. Still waiting for that gap on BC or on Doge way up top. So I'm probably going to be flying solo tomorrow. I'm not quite sure whether Thomas is around this week or not. So we'll just have some fun. If anybody would like to come on and contribute something, maybe we can even. Does anybody want to volunteer to be on for tomorrow morning's BCH review? What the fuck happened? Also, too, Philip was chatting with Philip in the lounge this morning. Mr. Master Nodes. Not a bad idea. We maybe think about doing another Master Node sort of review. How are things going over there? And are there any areas that look especially appealing to you right now? If I'm basically giving open floor for tomorrow. If you want to come on and present an idea to the community, just reach out to me, okay? Okay, I think we'll leave it at that. Have yourselves a great day, everybody. Remember what your number one job in this space is to do always, right? I want to see everybody here again tomorrow to have some fun. Of course, never a dull moment in this crazy-ass space. So I think we'll leave it at that. I'm getting PMs now. Somebody's probably telling me I need to be somewhere. So I'm going to let it go at that. You guys have yourself an absolutely awesome rest of your day. Yeah, the crypto market's a bit soft right now, but ironically enough, today's bear actually sows the seeds for tomorrow's bull. So if you are really serious at this, remember, guys, I've been at this silly game for like 20, 30 years. I'm not going anywhere. In this kind of environment, just got to cool your jets, wait for the dust to settle, wait for the public to lose interest, and then we start the whole damn game all over again. Okay, why don't we leave it at that? You guys have yourselves a great rest of your day. All the best, and a big bye for now.